Hi and welcome to Coaches on the Couch. My name is Sharon Page. This is Phil Pollard and together we are your relationship specialists. We have a really fantastic topic of discussion for today. Phil?
Yeah, we do. We've got a few to cover today, Sharon. Sometimes I wonder how we're going to fit it all in half an hour, but we're going to talk about self-esteem and what that means, as well as motivation, like where does that come from and how do we find it if it disappears?
Yep.
And we're going to answer the all-important question is, how do you gain control in your life when it seems like there's no control, like things are out of your control?
Yep.
And how do you get up when the world seems to be against you? And like really it's like, how do we recover from rock bottom?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like looking at all those issues. Maybe we could tackle the first one, like when life seems out of control and there's things you can't, well, you don't have control over.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just like, you feel like the world is coming at you as one.
Yeah, it's almost like the Matrix, you know.
That's right, except we can't have that bendy power. You know?
Yeah.
So it's how.
So what is an example of that? When everything seems to be out of control, what's an example?
Yeah, look, I had this lady. She was in a situation where she just, I think she had about 2 or 3 kids. Mm-hmm. She felt like she was under constant pressure because when you start to have kids under 5, if anyone's got any more than 2 kids under 5, I reckon they're miracle workers in what they have to contend with. And you know, because she was not working, and her and her husband both had great jobs, and now they're relying on one wage, and he's like, well, we need to tighten the belt here, tighten the belt there. And she's juggling not just the kids, but the finances as well. So she feels out of control of the finances. She feels out of control with the kids because, you know, not many kids you can control.
Yeah, okay.
Especially you know, when they're running around and learning how to walk, you need eyes, definitely need eyes in the back of your head. And she felt like there's just no control anymore, that she had no say in her life. And you and I have worked in with long-term unemployed as well.
Yep.
And again, that's another situation where they feel like it's just out of control.
Yeah, yeah.
And
look, it can also just be a perception that things are completely out of control because, you know, often I have found with my clients that I've worked with is that when one particular problem surfaces, it's like a million other things start to surface at the same time. But a lot of the times, if we just get back to the root cause of what the problem is in the beginning, what tends to happen, if you can gain control over that issue, you know, look, being able to handle that issue a lot easier, what tends to happen, all that other surface stuff tends to start taking care of itself.
Yeah, there's an expression that I've used from time to time. It says what you do in one thing, you do in everything. Mm-hmm. So what you're looking at, Sharon, is perfect. When you say if you can just control the you know, you do a list of priorities like this is my biggest thing that seems out of control. Yeah. Because sometimes things seem out of control. Yeah. And they're really not.
Another great point there to pick up as well, Phil, would be to write the concerns down on a bit of paper because there is something powerful that occurs with that. Like the brain doesn't know the difference between whether the problem has been resolved or not when you're actually putting it down on the paper. If anything, the brain starts to go into solution mode and you do start to come up with, you know, the answers on how to solve those concerns.
It's always the first thing I say is get it out of your head. Yeah. Because when it's out of your head, you can actually see the problem.
That's right.
And then it brings in another dimension of our senses. Because if it's all caught up here, then we're stuck here.
Absolutely.
And we can be laying awake at night. I don't know if anyone at home has ever laid awake at night thinking about problems, but I know I have, and I really know most of the world does as well. Yep. So it's just like, okay, so as they start to occur, really have a pen and paper beside your bed. That's the first place to start and get control.
Create a master list. Create a master list of all of your concerns. And then this is something I adopted a number of years ago. So creating a master list of all of my concerns that were really, really bothering me. And then on a side note, creating what's called a hit list. Yep. So the hit list is the priority list. So this is what we tackle. This is the main priority. This is what needs to get done. And I find by doing that, it as I said before, all that surface stuff tends to not be as great of an issue, and therefore you have more control over the situation at hand. Yeah, you can respond better.
Absolutely, and it's just like when that's out, not only can you see it, but the unconscious mind, and we're all driven by our unconscious minds mostly, because consciously we're in this world where there's 5 things we can think of, plus or minus 2. A great example of that is if you're driving down the road, and especially on freeway driving, all of a sudden, geez, I don't remember driving the last 5 or 6 kilometres because you haven't had to. The unconscious has got that. And look, I guarantee if a kangaroo jumps out on the road or a truck hits the brakes in front of you, your consciousness will come into play.
Of course it will.
But most of the time, our unconscious, not just in driving, but happens everywhere. We get caught up in thinking about problems, and we think thinking about problems is a solution. And it's not, it's just
creates more problems.
Thinking about problems actually creates more.
It adds to it.
Yeah, it has your sleep be reduced and all sorts of things.
Yep.
So, the first piece of advice, get it out of your head, right?
Yep.
And really, because that gets you out of your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's go to the second question here that was shot through to us was how do you recover from rock bottom? So an example of that may be being made redundant. Working over a number of years, you're being made redundant. You, let's say, have a family to support, and you're the sole provider of that family, perhaps, and all of a sudden you don't have this income. What do you do?
Yeah, again, it's just like getting it out, looking what the problems are, listing it out and getting priorities. Because at the rock bottom for everyone becomes a motivation. I always say when people hit rock bottom, they'll go one or two ways. They'll either stay there, dwell on it where it's stinking and rotten down the bottom, or what they'll do is they'll say, I freaking had enough here. I'm not going to take this anymore. I've always perceived my life to be bigger and better than this. So, the only way I'm going to do something different is to do something different. So it's taking different actions and finding what the thing is inside of you that's going to get you out of bed every morning. And
I guess reach out for some help and support because, you can only see as much as you can see through your own eyes. Those solutions that we're talking about before. So reaching out. It's perfect,
because getting a coach is always help people as well. Or just, even if you can't afford a coach, it's like, speak to someone about it. Get it out of here, write it down. What's the thing that's going to get you out of bed every morning? But
we'll talk more about this coming up after the break. We have a very special guest, Glenn, who's coming on board to on the couch to share his incredible success story, and I guess share some insight into how he went from, I guess, rock bottom. And completely turned his life around.
Yeah, he's an amazing character, Glenn. I've known him for a few years now, and he's a bit of a character, and he's from Dandenong, but we never hold that against anyone from Dandenong. As they say, you can take him out of Dandenong, you can take the boy out of Dandenong, but can't take Dandenong out of the boy. So we'll find a little bit more about Glenn when we come back from the break. So stick around. He's an amazing character. I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting Glenn. Hi and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist. So today I've got Glenn Pellegrin with us, and he's someone who has turned his life around completely. It wasn't that long ago that Glenn was couch surfing with no fixed address and looking for handouts to get by. But Glenn was able to observe that if he didn't change something, he was going to be stuck in a rut forever. He took full responsibility, stopped playing the blame game, received some coaching, and then took the actions that today see him as being a guide and a leader in his community. Glenn has a role helping those that have lost their way and are seeking accommodation within his community, and empowers those that come into contact with him to step up and be accountable. Please welcome Glenn Pellegrin.
Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you on the show.
Great being here, thank you.
Glenn, you have an incredible story, very powerful one. Can you share us and the viewers a little bit of an insight into your story and what it was like for you to hit that rock bottom?
My story, as Phil mentioned before the ad break, I grew up in Dandenong, and growing up in Dandenong, you've got the external environmental factors where things can be quite hard at times. So growing up in these environments, there was a constant partying kind of lifestyle, going out, you drinking, partying, and it's kind of a vicious cycle that goes on and on and on. It got to a point where I realised that I didn't want this in my life anymore, and but I didn't see any kind of future or any kind of hope. I knew that it's not what I wanted, but I didn't know how to go about doing it.
Okay.
It wasn't until I actually hit rock bottom. At the time, I was actually getting coaching by Phil himself.
Okay. When you say you hit rock bottom, what was that about?
That was a point where I thought I had no future. I didn't know where to go, and I attempted suicide.
Okay.
It was at that point that I realised that drastic changes needed to be done.
Yeah.
So after that, I started realising that I need to be more accountable.
Yep.
I need to take responsibility in my life if I want these changes to occur. I can't keep doing the same kind of things and expect different results.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So
Yeah, that's perfect. And so you received some coaching from Phil around that and to help you, assist you to move forward, which is fantastic. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing now?
Yeah, and what would be also great to add too, Sharon, is if we could put a little bit of the journey, how he got from where he was to where he is today, because there's a lot of great steps he's taken that I'm sure the viewers will be able to tie in with.
So I created goals for myself. So I realised that previously I had worked in different kind of admin roles, factories, customer service. So I knew I had the skills there to project me into any direction that I wanted to go in. So I realised I hadn't been working for 2, 3, 4 years, in and out of work in that time. So I realised, to make a change, I'll do anything to make a change.
Yep.
And so I then went on minimum wage.
Okay.
Basically, I went out there, I was just working $16 an hour just to get there, just to get myself back into the industry and get myself back into a habit, because we're creatures of habit as humans. So after I worked as a courier driver for, I think it was better a year and a half.
Right.
I then started applying for other roles. I realised, the next step, I've reached my goal. I needed to take
the
it up
next
another level, because
Yeah,
my
so-
goal was kind of here, and I knew I was coming from rock bottom, but I knew my goals that I was going to do.
And you've brought up a valid point there, Glenn, because when we do hit rock bottom, and talking about the overwhelming feeling of so many problems going on that we can't handle, it's quite often because when you've hit that rock bottom, you're looking at the ultimate goal and where you really want to be, and it seems so far away, and it's like, how is it even achievable? So that's where the motivation plummets and the self-esteem falls down.
And it's all about small steps, isn't it?
And this is where he's going.
That's beautiful. Great story.
Yeah.
So then after I worked as a courier for a year and a half, I then got a job at a university.
Yep.
Applied for this role in the university. I got the role, and I had to put my ego aside, and even though it was a receptionist role,
Yeah.
So, but I knew that in itself was going to get me to where I wanted to be, and where I wanted to be was, I was talking amongst friends that I, former friends or old close, mates, that, we're growing older, and as we're growing older in the community, we need to look after them, like the younger ones that are coming up, because if the young ones don't have direction from those who know the consequences.
When you say the community, could you just elaborate a little bit there? What's
the community is where I grew up in Dandenong. So
Okay.
It's if you grew up in, I don't know how you can term that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You
But no,
said-
I don't think it matters where you grew up. I mean, Glenn knows I've done a bit of work in the remote communities, and it's the same thing. I don't care where you grow up. A community is a community you take care of, and the people you grow up with. And if you get a leader step up, because I've always, that's been my recognition of Glenn since the moment I met him. With there's a leader inside of him, and he's slowly stepped up into that as he's gone along.
Yep.
Yeah. So stepping up as a leader in your community is what you've done.
So I realised that I had the skills to help other people, and that's what I wanted to do. So I didn't know what kind of role I wanted to do, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I kept an eye out on Seek just to if something popped up. Lo and behold, a community housing role popped up at Aboriginal Housing Victoria, and that's working within the southeastern Melbourne region. So that's my community, I'm southeastern,
Fantastic. And
how many houses do you look after?
I don't know, 160 something,
That's
167 I think.
That's a lot of responsibility.
I'm a landlord now, so I don't know how that happened. You
And when
know,
you
to
look
go
at-
from
from
couch surfing to
Yeah.
to being a landlord, and but that's such makes me feel so good inside knowing that I'm helping other people
Yeah.
in that situation too.
Absolutely, and it's all about taking those little steps to get there.
It is. Can I ask what was the time frame from one to the other, from couch surfing to now being the one to look for accommodation? Approximately.
Approximately about 4 years.
So things can be
4
really
to
fast
5
tracked.
years, but I put it into manageable
Chunks.
chunks.
That's it.
and
Chunking down.
that's-
Yep.
And that's what made it easy.
Well,
It's quite
congratulations.
daunting.
You really should be acknowledged for what you have achieved. And I'm sure you do that yourself anyway. And I'm sure others like Phil and your
Chunking down
family
your goals.
and friends do congratulate you. That it's an incredible achievement.
Thank you very much.
So, Glenn, are you prepared to stick around? We've got a break coming up, and then we're going to rip into a viewer's letter, and I hope you'll be able to hang around and give us a hand with this and
I would
answering the
love
questions.
to. Let's do
Right.
Yeah,
All
awesome.
right, well, stay with us. We'll be straight back after the break with Glenn and the viewer email. And welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist. We're here with Glenn, and it's time for our viewer email segment. And Sharon, who's our email from today?
Yeah, excellent. So our email is from Max in Frankston. And Max writes, "Hi Sharon and Phil. I've been out of work for over a year now. I'm 55 and I was an IT specialist for a large insurance company. I took a redundancy package and paid off most of my house with it. I'm getting the dole, but there is not enough to live on. I applied for many jobs, but now I don't even bother going for interviews anymore because I'm sick of hearing the same things. You're too old, been away from the industry, and the updates are far too long. I've put on about 25 kilos and I'm smoking too much because I have the time to." Okay. "I don't believe that I'll ever find work again because IT systems are constantly changing. My wife has taken up a part-time cleaning job to help out and she hates it. I feel like my old confidence is gone and the only reason I go to bed is to sleep. Can someone help me?"
Wow, Max. I reckon you could take some advice from you, Glenn. Because remember where you were, you said, if you don't do something different, life's going to go one way for you. And it looks like he's heading something along these lines as well. So for something different he could do. And what I love is the way Glenn had his story where he was delivery driver, and then you tried many different roles, and now you're at a place where life's done the full 360 for you. So maybe our friend Max could take some advice from Glenn and start to do something a little bit different. Because when you look at, how old is he, 50 something?
55.
55. It's like, he's got a lot of experience, and it's funny because we've done a lot of work in long-term unemployed, and I don't care. I've heard the excuse, "Oh, 55, I'm too old. No one wants me. I'm on the heap," or I'm only 19 years old and I got no experience and no one wants to employ me. So it's like, here's the thing. You're either going to find a way or you're going to find an excuse. And I think what our friend Max is alluding to here, he's got a lot of excuses in there going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And he probably can't see them. He's blaming everything else, right? So
It's also important to know that it's easy to get into that frame of mindset.
Isn't it?
It is easy,
Yeah.
and it can happen to the best of us. So
yeah. So what about from your point of view, Ken? I mean, I know he might seem like an old fella, but it's really is. You can see how it maps across to you.
Yeah, that's right. It's about. I think it's about assessing your barriers, what's inhibiting you from actually, putting a positive spin on yourself and getting yourself out of that kind of mentality.
yeah,
And also, it's good to also look back on say your resume or your past experience, because he's 55. He's got wisdom and behind him to actually realise what you can and can't do.
Yeah,
so if he looks
absolutely.
back at his resume and sees the skills that he has learnt, he could put that into a new job or a new direction in
Of
life, or
course.
trying to help support the family.
yeah.
And it's really good too that he's paid most of his mortgage too, so
Yeah.
that kind of alleviates that kind of monetary.
Well,
That's
that's right.
right.
And look, There's one point I wanted to pick up there. Just, I love how you said focusing on having a look at the barriers that you're placing upon yourself. Like having a look at, okay, well, what are you actually good at doing? You know, what can you do? Because our mind plays this funny trick that when we focus on what we don't want, we tend to bring more of that into our lives. So how about just get really clear, I guess, not only on what you really want, but also what are you good at? What can you do? What Phil had suggested before, 55 years of experience.
And you know that I've had customers like this that have come to me, and I was in a similar situation. It was like in my old days, I was doing what Glenn did for a long time, driving trucks.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I couldn't do that anymore because my back went south. Right. And it's like, now what can I do? And it's like using what I already know, using my skill set and mapping it across. And maybe Max and others at home might do the same thing. Just because you've done something, and you start to pull the skill set apart in that, you can really say, well, hang on, I can map that across to something else. And, you know, maybe he's great. He could be a good trainer.
Yep.
Like, I'm sure people want to learn how to do IT and how to sell themselves and be, you know, even his experience in the insurance company, he'd know a lot about what makes insurance companies tick.
For sure.
Yeah, so he could map those skills, pull them apart and start to apply for not just insurance company jobs, but for even things like training jobs at TAFE.
Yeah.
Right? Using the skills he's learnt and mapping them across.
Yep.
And we do that with everything. I mean, the skills you picked up driving would have been things like being organised, being on time, and showing up a lot of times. So, and then it's like, they're your strengths, okay, let's map them across to the next role I'm going to be taking. So, yeah.
Because it's also about those small steps as well, like
the small chunks,
yeah, the small chunks. You know, it's okay to start out anywhere.
And
I think it actually looks better on your resume to be working than not.
And
I'll
guararantee you, sorry if that, I'll guarantee you that will build your confidence up.
Absolutely.
In doing so, you'll feel
on.
so good about yourself in doing that.
Yeah.
So it's taking action. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
I'm hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we were to summarise some key highlights from today's discussion,
sure.
What would they be for you, Glenn? So someone that's hit rock bottom, the conversations that we've had today, what are your key messages that you would like to share with the viewers?
Setting yourself goals.
Yeah.
And also manageable chunks in achieving those goals. So
excellent.
Those would be my two main points. If I had to add one more, stay positive, believe in yourself.
Yeah, good on you.
Believe in yourself.
At the end of the day,
that's that self-esteem.
Take responsibility.
Yeah.
I think it was it Einstein that had E equals mc squared, and E being energy. So when you look at the word emotion, it's like getting your energy in motion. So changing your emotions, and that will change your energy. Even if he starts with something simple, like just if he sets himself a goal of applying for 5 jobs every day, as opposed to, well, I'm not even going to show up because they don't want me anymore. Apply for them and show up. Maybe that's the first place to start. So changing your emotion, your energies in motion.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe even doing a little bit of what's called a mind map or a brain dump around what are you actually good at doing.
Absolutely, makes sense.
Yeah, focusing on your strengths.
I noticed we're very close to the end of the show. So
maybe doing a bit of a mind map around the strengths and what you can actually do, and then also including just the hit list and master list. Getting that out on paper, especially when we've got too much going on.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn, for coming with us this week and playing with us.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
And that's the end of our show.
Yep.
If you want to know more about Glenn and what he's up to, plus more about us, head over to www.coachesonthecouch.com. And until then, we'll see you next time.